Thank you so much, Michael, for joining us.
Yeah.
Again, I'm just going to highlight your resume. Michael is a former professional athlete with more than a decade of MLS, NASL, and USL experience. He's currently a color analyst for the ACC and the Longhorn Networks, along with Austin FC. And the team is coming off an amazing playoff run. Please welcome Michael Lahoud to the pod. And Nico, we're going to take it away. Let's kick it off with how initially you got into the sport of soccer.
Ooh, well, thank you for the warm welcome. My wife jokes with me that I'm a man with 400 jobs, so I'm glad that was limited to a shorter list right now. No, soccer has always been a part of me. It's in my blood, and my family loves the game. And I come from Sierra Leone, West Africa, and soccer is the most important thing there. It's the biggest sport there. It's a real unifier in the community and in the country. So the joke in my family was I was born with the ball out of the womb, just holding on to a ball. It was my first love. It was the thing that gave me meaning. It really was an expression of the passion that I had and as a kid and that I still have today as an adult. And
growing up, because I know that you're a former Demon Deacon, how did that transition from growing up as a little kid and then ultimately, did you have that desire to play in college, to play professionally? Like, when did that all come about?
Oh, it was a process, really. Part of my story with soccer was I just followed wherever the ball was going and wherever the ball was bouncing. I didn't know about the constructs and the institutions that you had to go through. Knew very little about the high school soccer or club soccer at the time. There wasn't academies that we see now, teams like Austin FC having really well-established academies. I moved from Sierra Leone, West Africa to the Washington, D.C. area, and the first club I played with was Braddock Road Youth Soccer Club. They've been around, I think they're still around, but they've been around for decades. A lot of household names had gone through there, and I didn't really know what I was doing, but I knew I loved the game, and I knew I was willing to do the extra to go and play the pickup games, play in tournaments, guest play in things, to express that passion. And I also knew I had a dream to make it big, as we said in our house one day. I used to do this thing, and I actually don't talk about it much, but it was like being in the lab for myself. After school every day, I would run home, or I would get off the bus, go home, and while other kids were either playing video games, doing schoolwork, I was recreating the World Cup in my head. I was counting down, kind of NBA. Yep. I was counting down the shot clock because I also am and was a massive NBA fan. Yep. So I was counting down. 15 seconds left. Yep. Lahoud's got the ball. Yeah. He dips. He fakes. Yep. And I would try to beat the buzzer, and I would do that every single day up until I graduated high school. Yep. Every single day, and in our front yard, there was a goal that I made, and it was just out of whatever was in the yard. And I would practice putting the ball into the top corner. You couldn't shoot it too high because it would go in the creek. Yeah. But I did it every day. It was just imagining myself being at the highest level, playing the world's game. And I knew that there was an element of something that I was destined for, but I didn't know how to get there. I just kind of trusted that, hey, let me just go to the next game. Yep. And the next game went from club soccer to high school soccer. I went to W.T. Woodson High School in Fairfax, Virginia, and just really enjoyed playing with my buddies, playing with my best friends growing up. They were all aware of college soccer, the pros. I just was the kid who was like, yeah, sure, I'll just go and play. And that led me from high school to college to professional soccer. And I think when that dream really materialized into something tangible, in 2007, we had the great honor of winning the national championship at Wake Forest University. And my coach, Jay Vidovich, he grew up in Brazil. And so he took us back and shared with us where the inception of where his love for soccer began. Mm-hmm. So he was a guy born in Detroit, grew up in the Midwest, and his family moved to Sao Paulo, Brazil. So we got to walk the streets of where he grew up, to walk a mile in his shoes when he was around our age. Yeah. And I remember getting off the bus. We were watching Corinthians, one of the biggest teams in Sao Paulo, getting off the bus, and there are these fans that thought that I was this legendary Corinthians Brazilian player named Abuda. Still don't know who Abuda is, but I guess I look like his carbon copy. So these fans had like Budweiser, the king of beers, and no, it's not a sponsor.
Yeah. We need a plug.
But the king of beers in Brazil screaming Abuda, and they like grabbed me and they were like, "We found Abuda." And in that moment, something clicked for me of like, here's a guy that's no longer living, but is a legend and is just impacted this community, one of the biggest countries in the world, one of the hotbeds of soccer, and he's a living legend. I think I want to do that. So
absolutely. When you kind of reflect back on like your childhood, right? Everybody has those players that they see on TV and they try to emulate, whether that's skill or work ethic. Who were some of the players that when you went home, who were you trying to replicate?
Oof. So ironically, on the drive up, I was talking with one of my really good buddies. Give him a shout, Stefan Fullerton. I call him Doc because he's the doctor of life.
We love this,
and a bunch of other things. And we talked about role models and who we look up to. So growing up until 1999, I didn't have a soccer role model that was tangible. The closest thing I think was probably the Brazilian Ronaldo. Just what he did, 94 World Cup here in the States. I remember the teenage phenomenon. I think he was 17. And then 98, best player alongside Zinedine Zidane, Brazil, France. I remember I was at Boy Scout camp when the finals was going on. It was torture not being able to watch the finals live. But I say he was the closest thing to my first ever role model. But really my sports role model growing up was Michael Jordan. Which, as I look back on it, it was because it was someone who looked like me, who I could relate to, who here was a black athlete who was at the pinnacle of all his powers. And he was more than just basketball. He was more than just his sport. And so there was a desire imprinted on me watching him that I wanted to be more than just this dream of playing soccer professionally. And as I got more into the game, watching World Cups and European soccer, the irony of the player who was my hero, he played for one of the teams I absolutely despise the most, Arsenal. Thierry Henry. I watched Thierry Henry in the 1998 World Cup with France. He's 20 years old, just attacking talent, Olympic sprinter speed, and just had that Parisian French suave about him, killer instinct. But when he moved to the Premier League, the grace, the elegance, and also the things he stood up against. He was one of the first advocates to speaking up against racism in soccer and very vocal about his experiences in France and in the UK and the media. And he was really talismanic about using his position and platform with Nike to speak out for social justice.
Yeah, you touched upon, looking up to Michael Jordan and because of the fact, he was bigger than basketball. It wasn't just the sport that he was, super talented at. It was the fact that he kind of touched the community and fans in a different way on a different level. For you, I know that giving back to your community, whether that be now here in Austin or back home at Sierra Leone, how important that is for you. Why is that so important to you?
I'm going to refer to one of the best philosophical quotes I've ever heard. Happened in the movie theater, Spider-Man, the first one. With great power comes great responsibility. I remember the movie theater I was at in Fairfax, Virginia when I heard it, and it was like the light bulb went off. As I've gotten older, one of the things that I'm a big believer in is knowing your story. And a mentor of mine said that the most powerful thing about any of us that we will ever have in this lifetime or this world is our stories. So you'd be wise to get to know your story. Yeah. And my story is one of being given opportunities. And a lot of people invested in me. A lot of people gave me a chance. So I left Sierra Leone when I was 6 years old in the midst of civil war and came to America because I got a chance, a lottery visa to leave West Africa in the midst of war. The next chance I got was a chance in education that I didn't understand how significant it was. But I knew that education and going to school gave me friends, gave me a chance at having a life. And that education spilled into the chance of going to university and getting higher education, and also fulfilling my dream of playing soccer at a higher level, and ultimately gave me the chance to play professional soccer. So all of that culminated in this moment when it was my second year, it was 2010. We were going up to Seattle to play the Seattle Sounders. And man, were the Sounders good. they this year, not so much, but it was their second year of many of making the MLS playoffs. And they just won the Open Cup. And national TV, ESPN Game of the Week. And ironically, I think it was just before my broadcast counterpart, Adrian Healy, started doing their play-by-play. So I missed him by a year for this game. Yeah. But I'm really glad I missed him because I had an absolute stinker. But what I do remember more about that game and that trip was getting off the bus, and you have cameras all around you, you have interviews, and someone came up to me saying, "Hey, there's a woman who wants to see you. She's at the bar with one of her friends." Yeah. So okay. I go down and sit down with her. Her name is Cindy Nofziger, a Seattle native, and she said, "Hey, I kind of looked you up and saw you guys were coming into town." And she goes, "Hey, I want to ask you a question." "Yeah, sure thing." She goes, "How do you like to change the world?"
Oh. Deep, yeah.
I was fresh out of college a couple years before. Not too many college students get asked, "How do you like to change the world?"
Yeah.
Right.
I think they maybe asked what toppings do you want with that pizza.
Yeah.
You want a margarita with tahini on it, salt, but not that.
Yeah.
And it shook me in it hit me, not shook me, but it hit me to the core of my being of like, oh my gosh, this is something I didn't know. It was a question I didn't know that I needed to be asked, that deep down I was asking myself. And so she gave me a book called A Long Way Gone by Ishmael Bia, and never told me what she did. So she goes, "Read the book, come back to me in a couple weeks' time, and we'll talk." So I read the book, and it was as if someone held up a VHS tape for those of us who grew up in the 90s. But it held up a mirror in a movie, and it was my life that I would have lived out had I not left Sierra Leone. And I was so touched by that, by Ishmael Bia's story of leaving war, and he actually had to stay during the war, but the story of redemption and the promise that he made to go back and help redeem our home country of Sierra Leone and redeemed what happened to him in the next generation. And something clicked in that moment of, I was given an opportunity, and I want to make sure that nothing like the atrocities of what happened in the war over blood diamonds ever happens again, and education was the way to do it.
Yeah. Moving forward to now, you're with Austin FC doing color analyst work for them. Talk about the impact that the club has made, not only on you, obviously, giving you another opportunity, but the city and the fact that they've just rallied around this team.
What Austin FC has become to the city of Austin, it's like lightning in a bottle. I don't know if anyone predicted the behemoth this club is become. I remember when I was interviewing for the job, and I don't talk about this process much just because it's not, you're only as good as your next game. I remember that, but it's next game. You know, you're already thinking about next season, CONCACAF Champions League. The club has just grown significantly overnight. But I remember coming in the interview process, there was a question that I was asked of, what do you think soccer could be in this city? And I laughed to myself because I was like, oh my gosh, this is the perfect question, because I experienced the perfect answer a year before. 2019, I was up here in Austin for the first time ever. One of my buddies from Germany, give my buddies a shout out, Dr. Thilo Kunkel. He's a professor at Temple University, also MBA background. And he called me up and said, let's go spend 4th of July in Austin. Oh, sure thing. Had a blast, as most people do who come to the city of Austin. Well, I'd forgotten the Women's World Cup was taking place. So the day of the finals, we're trying to go get brunch. And I remember being on 5th Street, and there's a mural on there off 35, right off the freeway, frontage road. And at the time, it was a Batman, and I'm a huge comic book nerd. So I follow
Superman, Batman.
I follow where the comic book murals go. So we walk into this bar, packed. Go to the next bar, packed. Next bar, next bar. Everywhere 5th Street, packed. And, like someone who is a novice to the city, I said, why the heck are people here? Like, why is it so packed? Turn around, everyone's got U.S. Women's National Team jerseys on. Bing. Women's World Cup final. So it made such an impression on me to see the city of Austin congregate under the banner of soccer in 2019 before an MLS team was even here. And so it was, wow, there's something happening here, not just with sports, but with this game that brings people together. And you see it at the time of a World Cup, and the World Cup is such a special thing because it brings people from all around the world together. And I remember in that moment, and I remember my buddy Tilo and I had a great conversation about it, of, wow, this city is different because people from all walks of life, people from all over, not just Texas, you have people from California, New York, coast to coast, internationally. Austin is becoming that magnet that draws people together. And what a unique thing to have the world's game be that binding part that brings everyone in this city together. So that's what I told them in my interview process. Safe to say it helped. But it was something that I lived. It wasn't something that I looked up. It made a big difference, and it's made a big difference on me to actually live it firsthand before getting into broadcasting, before being on the business side of soccer. It makes it living and breathing. And so when the team was announced, when the first game at Q2 Stadium was kicked, which incredible memory, to see people come all around the city to filter in to the stadium, it reminds me of something that our VP of Marketing, James Ruth, said to me when I had my first day of orientation. He said, we want to be the flag bearer for this city in ways that the city's never experienced before. And that imparted something on me that I take a lot of pride in when we do our broadcast, or a lot of pride in with the club. It's a little cheesy saying. I usually joke around with Adrian. It's, come one, come all, come Austin. It doesn't matter who you are, whether you're a UT fan, A&M fans, got to give you a shout, Baylor, whoever you are, whether you have Austin roots or you're a transplant, there's a team that you're accepted by, and it's your team. And that's become Austin FC.
Yeah, it's been cool. I'm a transplant from Atlanta, so we've got Atlanta United over there. But, I've been here just shy of a year, and it's unreal to see. I mean, hearing you speak about it, it's evident that this city has just, whether you're a soccer fan, don't even know the name of a soccer player, couldn't name one Austin FC player, just to see them rally and have something to be excited about. Because I think for me, especially coming from Atlanta, where there's so many professional sports teams, here it's been just wild to see, like, the stadium, the fans. I mean, whether they're at Q2 or not, they're like plugged in and rallying behind this club, which is so special. But I want to talk a little bit more about how you made that transition from the professional soccer player to now being, in front of the camera, behind the mic. What was that transition like for you?
It was one of the hardest in my life. It's 2 years on. It's so much better. But soccer, as I said before, played such an integral part in my life. It gave me so many opportunities. It helped give me an education, an amazing education at Wake Forest University. And it was also my first love. It was being an immigrant, being a refugee. I came to the U.S. as a refugee. I didn't understand the language. I could understand it. I couldn't speak it as well. But the one thing I could speak was soccer. and to see it with coming on the cusp of the World Cup in 1994, a year before, seeing kids my age, kids older than me, seeing parents get their kids into soccer. It made all the difference to have that be the thing that allowed me to communicate with friends. It doesn't matter if you speak English, Arabic, Portuguese, French, whatever other language there is in the world. When someone points to the ball, give me the ball. You know, and I remember that with fondness of the timing of coming here. And so it's not till the end that you realize how special something is for you and what it's given you. When you're in it, you think of the mistakes you made, how you want to get, you're just so driven. And I was very driven to get to the top. And the pandemic gave us a lot of things and took a lot of things away. One of the things I believe it gave us was the gift of time and time to be with ourselves and really reflect. And at the time, I knew personally for me that my life was changing. And I'd also met my now wife, Lara, and I could feel this shift of my first love, that there was a new love coming into my life. And I couldn't do both. And I always knew that about myself, that I was almost married to the game of soccer and the sports world. And so as I was reflecting on what is this life without being a soccer player, it was a major loss for me. It was a loss of identity. I didn't know who I was without it. And since it's been, how do I even make friends? Or Stuart Holden, who's a good friend, when I was talking with him before making the decision to retire again to broadcasting, he said the first couple years of his broadcasting career were so difficult because it was learning how to refunction in society, where you take your Superman cape off or Superwoman cape off and you get to just be Stu or Michael or Adrian Healy. And that's okay. And learning to be okay being just you. And so I remember I retired in July of 2020. I was out in Marfa, and my wife and I took this amazing trip out west. And it was the perfect thing because we both mourned that together, and she gave me space to mourn. And out of that came the opportunity to take a chance on something I didn't even know that I was doing throughout my playing career. A former coworker of mine from a previous club reached out, and she said, what are you thinking of doing after soccer? I said, I don't know. Where are you going to end up living? I said, Central Texas, you know. And she said, do you remember all those things you were doing when you weren't training, like going to the studio, taking interviews? I always thought that you could be a good broadcaster. And I started laughing, and I was like, you're joking. Like I just wasn't taking myself seriously. I was just doing it because I love talking about the game. And she was like, that's exactly why. You love the game. And so she gave me a couple contact infos of people just to do informationals. And it's amazing. It's humble beginnings is what I say about my broadcast career. I did everything from the ground up. I started working with Jimmy Conrad, who Jimmy's mentor, mine, former teammate with Chivas USA. And working with him, I wrote scripts and did content creation. I didn't even realize I was a writer. I was able to tap in to a creative part of myself I didn't even know existed. And then I started doing podcast work, doing just guest appearances with MLS Soccer with their content stuff. And then someone said, hey, why don't you apply for the job with Austin FC? I thought, okay, now you're really crazy. I'm thinking, there's no chance. I have zero experience. And so I was like, okay, whatever. So I put my name in the hat, and it started this long interview process. And I knew I had to go get experience. And so pardon me.
Hey, we got to check those scores.
Yeah, World Cup's coming.
Yep.
So I went and got experience any which way I could.
Yep.
In the booth, learning things like production, learning things like directing. Just I wanted to be all encompassing to understand what I was getting myself into, because I'm a commitment person. When I commit to something, I'm all in. And so I jumped all in, and before I knew it, I was on a phone call with Adrian Healy, who I have such fond memories of listening to Adrian's broadcasts, Champions League, World Cups. First time I heard him was in, I think, Euro 2008. And I mean, just his poetic nature of things and how he expresses himself. And so to be on the phone call with him, I was like, someone pinch me. So it's been a fairy tale to be able to be here and work with NASL FC.
What's been the most, 2 seasons in, what's been the most surprising thing to you in this new chapter?
In terms of the club itself?
We'll touch on the club.
Okay.
In terms of the the color analyst work.
Oh, most surprising thing, the prep.
Yep.
When you watch broadcasting on TV, and you can attest to it, I would think how effortless a lot of people make it. And I remember when ESPN first came out, it was the storytelling, and the humor that was infused and imbued in it over time. They made it look effortless. Their ability to jump from one topic to another. The Pistons, the bad boys beat so-and-so. Jordan falls again. By the way, McEnroe loses the British Open. And I'm like, wait, how do you know all this stuff? And how do you sound like an expert? So the amount of research that goes into prepping for a broadcast is incredible. And I think I've benefited significantly of working with a mentor and my mentor and good friend, Adrian Healy, as someone who makes it look effortless, but it's because of the work he puts into it. Even the words that he uses. There was one of my favorite goal calls of his was Sebastian Driussi. One of his first goals last year, I think it was the game against San Jose. Crazy 4-3 game where Austin fell short in the end. And Sebastian Driussi had come from Zenit St. Petersburg. He had success in Russia before coming to Austin FC. So Adrian and I all week were joking around about James Bond and loving Bond films. And so I kid you not, it's crystallized in my brain, Driussi scores. And we both were like, we think Driussi's going to score. Driussi scores, and Adrian had kind of been quiet all prep for the game. Driussi scores, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to say something. Oh my gosh, this is a big moment. I see the chair slide out from underneath Adrian, kicks it out, and he gets up like this. And he looks at me, and it's like,
An audience.
he looks at me and he goes, "From Russia with love." And
Incredible.
Wow.
encompasses everything you need to know, whether you're a James Bond fan,
Yeah.
and goes into it. Ladies and gentlemen, Sebastian Driussi, and just goes into the goal call. And I was in awe. It was like you could see the gold dust fall from the stadium rafters. And so after the game, I asked him, I said, what went into that? Like how I'm in awe right now. And he was like, well, I researched Driussi's background, favorite movies. How's that encompassed with this thing that I've been working on? I've been sitting on this line for a long time. And if we ever got a player that, and just went into it.
Yep.
And I thought he was going to be like, I just felt it in the moment.
Yep.
And so it's been amazing to pick someone like his brain to delve into the weeds. I think that's one of my favorite parts of broadcasting is when you pick up on a storyline or a stat. Another story, Moussa Jite, just amazing story he has and what he's become for this team. Moussa Jite, hat-trick hero. First ever hat-trick for Austin FC. RSL game. That was my favorite game of the year. And I was so amazed watching the sidelines because Adrian and I have this system where it's just teamwork. It's kind of a lever. If I'm doing something or in the midst of saying something, he's looking for something for the next storyline. If he's doing a goal call, I'm looking for something on the sidelines to help. And we have a whiteboard or things that we can, it's amazing. Well, in that moment, I was in awe because I was thinking, holy moly, this is a massive moment for the club in this city. And before the hat trick was scored, you could feel the tense nature of what was going on. There was doubt, there was uncertainty, is this slipping away? And we were expecting a different sub to go in, and we see Musa come on. And it makes all the difference. And head coach Josh Wolf got it spot on. So afterwards, the curiosity of, why did Josh make that sub? What went into getting that spot on? I've always been curious about coaches timing it perfectly. So I went and asked and did the research. And it led me down this path of finding out not as much of what happened in that moment. That was a microcosm into finding out more about Musa's story, about what that made that more special, what inspired him, Musa's connection with his family, playing that game for his family, the language barrier for Musa Jite, and how much character that's developed in him, how the team wanted to win that game for him. And it really just rounds out a special moment and makes it that much more memorable.
Yeah. Wow. That's so amazing. I guess my other question following up on that one would be the most challenging part of this new job. So the surprising, but the most challenging, something people wouldn't expect. I mean, obviously people probably don't, like you were noting how effortless these, long-term broadcasters make it look. And then you're like, it's because of all the work and the behind the scenes that they put into it that makes them able to just go off without a hitch.
Most challenging part, I can speak from advice I've gotten and personal experience.
Okay.
Most challenging part personally for me is been honing in and not making yourself more important than the moment. So when a big moment happens, I think go back to Michael Jordan, what should have been his last game. Salt Lake City, 98, the push off, the crossover. You remember the moment and the story and the voice. The voice is painting and amplifying the moment. You don't remember the broadcaster. The broadcaster aids and amplifies the moment. And we all remember Jordan. Jordan. That's all he needed to say. He did not say, Michael Jordan, oh my gosh, could be his last game ever. But he just needed to say Jordan because the whole world was watching Michael Jordan in that moment. Is he going to take the last shot? Conversations happening in that stadium at home amongst friends. And I've learned just trial by error of sometimes less is more. And advice that I've kind of taken on was advice from my coworkers is more bunts, less home runs. You don't have to say something witty every time. You'll know the big moment. If you save it for the big moment's the big moment. But if every moment's a big moment, then it takes away from when you need to really bring the passion that you have, just how stoked you are, the atmosphere that's been created. And for those people who've been to Q2 Stadium, and for both of you who've been to Q2 Stadium, it's rocking. The second is finding your own voice. Oh, I'm still working on it. It's amazing when you see how the veteran broadcasters have been able to find their own voice. The play on words, the ability to analyze their go-to sayings. And I think that just comes with reps and experience.
You had a bit of a Tony Romo moment in season 1 when you predicted in an interview that they would be the dark horse. And that they would make a run in the playoffs, which they did.
Yeah.
But this year, the playoff run that they had, what impressed you most about the playoff run?
I think a couple things. One of them was the responsibility, watching players take responsibility over the team. The easiest person to see is Sebastian Driussi. That moment where I think I remember vividly where Driussi, it was after the LAFC game. That was a key moment to see the audacity to go. He pulled off a Rabona which is a skill that only people at the World Cup or Champions League do when they go to places you shouldn't be doing that against the now reigning MLS Cup champions, then one of the best teams in the league. And one of his compatriots played for NYCFC, Valentin Castellanos. They were neck and neck in goals. Castellanos leaves to go to La Liga to Girona. And you could see the light bulb go off in Driussi's head of, this is my league. I'm the best player in this league. I think he knew that he was, but it was, and I'm going to prove it. And he just took responsibility over the team offensively. The camaraderie of the leaders stepping up. Diego Fagundes Diego Fagundes tormented me during my career. I played in the game where he made his MLS debut.
Oh, wow.
We barely got there alive. I remember this, I forgot, was he a teenager?
14? Yeah,
14.
yeah.
We were winning 2-0. Whole stadium, 60th minute. Diego. And New England was not good at the time. And I'm like, who the heck, Diego?
Who's this kid?
Is this Diego guy? He comes in, draws a penalty kick, then scores a goal or assists on a goal. His first game, slippery as a fish. And we barely get out of there alive. And definitely tormented me throughout my career when I went to Philadelphia and he was still in New England. But to see him land on his feet and what he's meant to the Austin community, to the Austin fan base, to this city, and he's found a home here. I think of, obviously you mentioned the Moussa Jite, there's redemption. A lot of players redeeming their professional careers, redeeming their stories, and redeeming it in the backdrop of Austin. I think those are magical moments that always stay with you. And, I think that the quick growth of this team, not just from a business standpoint, but to go from a difficult start, expansion season, to being one game away from being an MLS Cup, that does not happen. And to see the growth in Josh Wolf, it's amazing to see him transmit his hunger that I remember he had. I mean, Josh was a guy who did not mess with on the field, just killer instinct. But to see him transmit that killer instinct that he showed with the men's national team, with his career throughout Major League Soccer and in Europe, and now the team is an embodiment of that. I mean, you have to applaud that. So.
It may be a bit cliche to ask, but hearing you speak, how important do you feel like for this playoff run specifically was the veteran experience?
Oh, incredible. Yeah. That was one massive change from year one to year two. Year one, I remember that was something I'd put in a kind of review each season. And I did that as a player. And I guess maybe it was destined to be a broadcaster because I just did that to process what I needed to do for the next season, how we could get better as a team, what are places that I need to improve on, etc. And I remember that was a question mark I had of, that's interesting. We're building something, but the one place that I didn't see enough of was MLS veteran experience. And I had a coach who taught me that when I was in Miami in the NASL, Alessandro Nesta, he brought in a lot of domestic veterans who played in MLS, but also each of us had stints in the lower leagues because we knew what it took to play against MLS teams, but also compete against the teams in the NASL. Grind out results when we needed to, get big wins, and play well when we needed to. And you saw that. Guys like Felipe. I remember when he was on trial in preseason and he scored, I think he scored the first goal in preseason for the club. And I remember sitting down and talking with some staff members and they just had this sense of a nod of approval. What a guy like Felipe, what are the guys like Hector Jimenez, Ethan Finley, Maxi Ruti even coming in, they are able to, in those games where it's so difficult, where your backs are up against the wall, they are the greatest equalizers. They provide the parity that makes MLS soccer so entertaining to watch. They are the ones who, in the 90th minute, are still willing the team forward. Felipe comes from a winning background, New York Red Bulls, won Canadian championships with Montreal, Vancouver. These are guys who are winners. Ethan Finley, his time, Minnesota, Columbus. Hector Jimenez won a couple MLS Cups with LA and Columbus. Maxi, US Open Cup. These are players who know the league inside and out, and they set the tone for the culture. They take the burden off of Driussi's shoulders. They take the burden off of Alex Ring to be the sole captain. And it now becomes almost like this form of leadership. And when I saw them having leadership meetings, and it wasn't just one person speaking, it invited the likes of leaders like Ruben Gabrielson, who was one of my favorite players to watch, to speak up. Sebastian Driussi as well, to speak up. And it created this sense of family atmosphere that winning teams have to have, I think.
Yeah.
When you think about that veteran leadership, how important is it for guys like the younger Wolf to get to play alongside those guys? And what's kind of been your experience as a mentor for some of the younger players coming through the club?
It's a great question. It's everything. It is, I remember being that guy. It makes a difference when you are being mentored by players who won things. So my rookie year, I was at Chivas USA, just gotten drafted. Of the guys in our team, that some of them, I'd say a lot of them, very successful. Jim Curtin, few MLS coaches of the year, lost the MLS Cup final, Philadelphia Union. Jesse Marsh, Ted Lasso in the Premier League, representing and holding up the banner for the United States, and a guy who's had an amazing coaching career doing the unthinkable. Ante Razoff, assistant coach for LAFC. Zach Thornton was on staff with DC United. I think may have been on staff with Josh Wolf for a bit at DC United. These are guys who come from a Bob Bradley coaching tree. Guys that came from the Chicago Fire team. They were all young guys, but won MLS Cups, won Open Cups together. And as a young player, I remember that feeling of it mattered more. The details matter more. It's not enough to just show up and have fun and play when you want. They helped teach me how to be a professional. They helped teach me how to be more consistent, how to think through the game and not just rely on talent. And I really saw that, the moment of truth for Owen Wolf, where I thought, wow, this is a team that is becoming a winning team and creating a winning pedigree. Owen Wolf, 2 games in LA, LAFC and LA Galaxy. You get your first 2 starts. Not easy places to go play, can tell you that. And LAFC, he looks like a veteran. Well, what I've been privy to and been able to witness in practice, Owen Wolf gets to go up against Alex Ring, one of the best defensive midfielders throughout Major League Soccer in the last 5 years. I've witnessed Owen Wolf, and Alex will definitely spare the blushes for this, but I've witnessed some nutmeg players in the middle of the park and just having fun. I've witnessed him go 50-50 with the likes of a Sebastian Driussi and win the ball. He's a teenager. He's getting ready, his friends are getting ready for prom. And
Right.
he's doing that.
Unbelievable.
Those are invaluable experiences. But what I love most is after those moments is seeing the arm around the shoulder that Driussi puts on him, that Alex Ring puts, Ruben Gabrielson inviting him and saying, hey, you have a seat at this table. And in that game against LAFC, he got the match ball. Fagundes scored the winning goal, Driussi with the assist, Ruben Gabrielson gets a goal, Valencia gets an assist, but the team recognized the coming of age of Owen Wolf. And as a young player, that you become, it's a rite of passage into adulthood. Let's just say that.
Looking forward, this is a bit of an interview question. The next 3 to 5 years, what do you see this team accomplishing?
I see them really challenging for an MLS Cup. To be able to have the rapid success, just lightning in a bottle. But the fact that they didn't chop and change the team entirely, they didn't go out and buy a playoff run. They did it through using every mechanism. Yes, to get a player of star quality, you have to go and splash in the transfer market to buy Sebastian Driussi. It's credit to Josh Wolf and his staff, and also sporting director Claudio Reyna. There's a consistency. There's an expectation from year 1 to year 2 where Brad Stuver knows how to play out of the back, but Brad Stuver is creating more of a presence. Danny Pereira, young draftee, he knows what consistency looks like. Danny Pereira started the season well, lost his way a bit with some of the yellow cards and red cards, regains form. These are experiences that this group is going through together. And in my experience, from college, from high school, a group that goes through the trenches together wins together. Yeah. Going back to basketball, Chicago Bulls, chopped and changed a lot of the fringes. Brought in the crazy Dennis Rodman. Brought in Steve Kerr. But you had your Ron Harpers. You had your Horace Grants before that. And I see that with this Austin FC team where the core is intact. And as long as the core is intact, as long as the core continues to develop, you will see the rise of younger players. And I think the finishing touch that championship teams in MLS need at some point is the influx of youth. Owen Wolff is a flag bearer for something that's happening with this club. And it gives hope to young players, not just from all around the country, but I'm excited to see the first Austinite and the first academy graduate, including, in addition to Owen Wolff, step foot at Q2 Stadium. I'm excited to see both of them combine for a goal, that first man of the match award. I mean, the sky's the limit for what this club can do, and not just in the next over-the-hill future, but in the next foreseeable future. CONCACAF Champions League experience in year 3. I mean, just it's a whole nother layer of what Austin FC is and can be.
This is a bit of a deeper question. In college sports specifically, obviously you played at Wake. There was a bit of, a resurgence, I guess, in the last few years of kind of the mental side of things. Yeah. COVID obviously was a part of that. And now you see some college students really kind of working through their mental health. I've got a friend that is over at UT and she's involved with the women's soccer team there, and how the universities are dealing with those kinds of struggles now and the kind of process that they're starting to put in place. Did you ever experience that? Did you ever see that as you were playing in college?
Absolutely. Yeah. I experienced it firsthand at Wake Forest University. No, it's just growing up, you didn't talk about it, especially in the African-American community and Black community. In the African community, definitely not talked about. And in the sports community and in the locker room, it was always deemed that the person who talked about their struggles, there was a weakness and vulnerability. And you almost had to harden yourself to show up, you be a warrior, toughen up, and that old school mentality that I think really came from a lot of my coaches were boomers, and their parents came from the war, and so that we have to lock it all up and just go perform and that be robots. But it's something that I think the current generation, I don't know what letter we're on, Gen Z, I think, Gen Y, Gen Z, I really admire them for. My youngest brother is of that generation, and his ability to express how he feels, to hear him say, I need to take a mental health day. Yeah. I remember saying that the other day where I was just the excitement of the World Cup, planning, coming up here, tomorrow doing a broadcast for the Bundesliga friendly between Cologne and Stuttgart. And the pause and remembering, it's like, wow, my brother's teaching me something like this. He's 18 years old, teaching me that it's okay to say, hey, I'm a human being. Let me stop and breathe for a second. It's okay to express my humanity. And I, at Wake Forest University, one of the things that I really struggled with was I came in the midst of civil war. I bear and bore a lot of trauma from war. And it was all coming out, and I didn't know what to do, and I didn't know how to express it, and because my entire life winning was everything, and now I see why, when I go introspective about it, there was a reason why I was driven, because it meant life itself to me that I had to get there. It was my way out of trauma. It was my way. I was still fighting the war. It wasn't the war without; it was the war within, and so. I think one of the biggest outlets for me, I realized wasn't just playing soccer. That was an inception point. It's been telling my story. It's been moments like this to say it is okay to bury your humanity.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
You noted just a second ago about the World Cup. Let's shift gears.
Ah,
Lots
of talking points.
The topics are endless.
Oh,
Your
yeah.
phone just went off. The notifications, the headlines are starting to roll out. What are you most excited about for this World Cup?
Once the whistle blows, I'm excited to just get to the soccer part. I think it's twofold. I'm excited for the games itself. I'm excited for some of the dark horses and some of the on-field storylines. But one of the things I'm most proud of is seeing players use their platforms to speak up. I'm rooting for the German national team. I usually do not root for the German national team. But I'm rooting for the German national team because they always find a way to win. Yeah. But I'm rooting for them because of Leon Goretzka and Joshua Kimmich, 2 players from Bayern Munich, who in the last Euros used their platform to speak up against homophobia. And they have been vocal about that, being vocal about migrant worker abuse going on at the World Cup. And every World Cup has its dark points. You can peel the layers back and see that at every World Cup. And there's a lot of talking points ahead of this World Cup in Qatar that need to have light shown on it. Because I'm very adamant about speaking up against that. It is not okay, the working conditions. It is not okay, some of the things that are happening. But it makes me proud to have soccer players of the community who are willing to use their platform and their influence, not just on the field, but off the field, to stand for something. And I think once the final whistle is blown on the last game, hopefully an African team or the U.S. men's national team win. I think we will look back on this as a really like milestone moment in World Cup history.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on the jerseys for the U.S.?
Ah, man, what's...
Oh, is this going to get controversial?
No. I'm not really a jersey snob.
Okay.
But this was one of the first times I was almost a jersey snob.
Okay.
My thing with jerseys is the link to jerseys, you're always remembered by the results you get in them. Very few people. My favorite jersey was the jersey from 2002. Why? Because it's the furthest we've ever gone in modern day soccer for the World Cup. One of my least favorite jerseys was the jersey from 2006 because there's a lot of expectation based on what we did. And going into the World Cup, I love the jersey from 2006, but it's associated with the results for me. So I tend to associate jerseys with results. So I know there's been some backlash, some question marks. I saw something on Twitter, potentially RIP to that thing soon. Hope not, but we'll see. Another talking point. And I saw someone putting a meme of like the Oreo wrapper. But if the U.S. men's national team go and beat England, which, that'll make my World Cup. If they get out of the group, if they make a run, it'll be my favorite jersey ever. And I'll be watching the matches with Oreos.
Oh, amazing. So we should have done an 0-2 throwback, but they didn't consult you.
No, it just means that we'll have to come back and do another show during the World Cup.
True.
With the 0-2 jersey on.
100%. We need to make that happen, Nico.
I'm down.
I'll make it happen. I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is even going to air by the time the World Cup starts, but first round upset.
Oh, man. The upset of the first round upset of the tournament, or just give you a first round upset? 'Cause I've got a few.
I've got a few as well. So I just want to hear from you
debate.
first.
Okay. One of the first round upsets I'm looking at is I think the U.S. men's national team is going to get out of the group. I think that
you heard it here
because
first.
I guess someone's got to have the whole Ted Lasso believe.
Yep.
I think that this is a group that thrives off naysayers. They're young, but we saw that what they did to Mexico. And Mexico is not England. What they did to Mexico when everyone was ready to crown Mexico as the best team already. This is a young group of players who have this sense of audacity, and they all grew up playing together. And they're playing at some of the highest levels. It'll be a coming of age moment for them. That's one of my upsets, is for them to get out of the group. Another massive upset, I think Denmark will top the group over France. And upset that I can't wait, because there's just controversy happening all over the place because of a certain interview with a certain Londoner that a certain player for Manchester United just did. I think Portugal are going to struggle and struggle like crazy. I think they may not even get out of the group. I pick Uruguay to top that group, and I think South Korea has a chance to knock Portugal out of the World Cup. And my last upset that I'm looking at, I picked Japan to get out of the group ahead of Spain, and Germany to get top of the group. So,
Nico,
what about you?
I think Senegal is a sleeper. They have so much talent, and they're going against Netherlands. There's you've got some of their top strikers. Memphis, he's out on injury.
Oh, he's out now.
He's on the roster, but he has been injured.
Ooh, wow.
So that's a key indicator going into that first game. And then, of course, Mane. He has the witch doctors apparently on, according to ESPN, getting cleared. So we'll see what happens. But I think that'll be a huge upset, is Senegal in that group.
I think those are good shouts. What about you?
Your girl has, honestly, I'm just Team USA.
Just USA.
Rooting for the jerseys.
You're rooting for the jerseys. I'm like, I love a good vintage throwback. And Austin has a lot of good vintage stores. So maybe I need to go scout out, see if somebody's getting rid of their, like Juju jersey or something. Like,
that's funny. Yeah. I think, and I love, that's a great question. And I don't think, I don't know if a lot of people, I haven't seen a lot of people talking about potential for upsets at the World Cup. I think it's amazing in just the U.S. group alone. It's something the fact that it's happening on Black Friday, U.S. England. I know Adrian Healy will be sweating pools of sweat for that game. He was sweating pools when they did the draw. We were at St. David's Performance Center, and Josh Wolf and Claudia Reyna gave him a lot of stick for that game. But there's so many storylines. The game against Wales. Gareth Bale plays here in MLS, Austin FC. You remember him in that 4-1 demolition at Q2 Stadium, which that was an amazing moment. I feel like the shirt that I was wearing, I want to keep the beer stains from the stadium that day just to make it, frame it.
Yes,
iconic moment. That's your jersey.
Yes.
I think just 1998 US-Iran, that was a big moment. Can the young players cope with just so many of the implications of that game? And Iran's a good team. They are a good team, very stingy team to break down. Obviously, US-England. I'm not sold on this England team. Just from some of the freelance work that I do with CBS Sports, work with a lot of Englishmen, and we get into it.
Very passionate.
So this
Englishmen.
is for them. I'm not sold on England. I told them to their face, I'm not sold on what this England team is selling, and I'm still not sold.
I mean, you've had, again, some Tony Romo moments. So I feel like, you heard it here first. Whenever this launches, we're going to roll the tape back and we're going to be like, Michael predicted it.
Well, and if it all goes south, then
Michael, you didn't
we'll just
hear it
cut
here.
it
we'll
out.
just cut. Yeah, we'll edit. We'll just put the bleep
Right.
for the team names.
Insert team name.
No, but and I just sorry to cut you out, but I think one of the things that you mentioned, Tony Romo, when you asked about broadcasting, he was one of the reasons I got into it.
Yeah.
I love watching him do what he does because he loves what he does. It's not a job. It's every day is Christmas. Every game is Christmas for him. And the icing on the cake was the prediction stuff.
Oh my gosh.
Looking ahead.
Wizardry.
But to see him talk about former colleagues and counterparts, the respect before Giselle, but the respect and admiration of player that he took a lot of flack because he couldn't beat him. Tom Brady, talking about Patrick Mahomes, talking about Aaron Rodgers, what makes them special. And hey, this is why I couldn't beat these guys. The humility that takes, I think that's something that is kind of an up and coming broadcaster. That's something that I really admire about him, and just maintaining that humility for how difficult it is to be a professional athlete, and also the humility and gratitude that he shows to just different colleagues. He's been one of the people who you really get to know someone's character and different realms that they're in, and I think his best days and most influential moments are ahead of him as a broadcaster.
Yeah, he's been fun to watch. Felt bad for him at the end of his career, but he's one of those guys that has really made a seamless transition from his football playing career to now broadcasting and really holding it down and just being like the wizard.
Well, he's himself, and it's not I was gonna say unapologetically, but I think there's a bad connotation when you hear people say, "Oh, I'm unapologetically myself." It doesn't mean you have to be a jerk. He's unapologetically passionate, and that's
a better way to put it.
Apart. Where he's apologetically himself and good guy. And one of my best friends is a massive Niners fan. Who said that? So that it takes a lot for Niners and Cowboys fans to come together over something.
Yeah. Well, Michael, as we near the end of this interview, what's next for you? You alluded at the beginning of the interview, you're a man of like 45 jobs. You're in the off season now with Austin FC, but you've still got the college color analyst work. What are you doing? What's up next?
Oh, enjoying the holidays. Yeah. It's just been a lot of soccer with the World Cup coming up. It's been really amazing. My wife and I took a 2-week break where we traveled France for 2 weeks, and there were a lot of head scratchers amongst our friends and some colleagues. Like, it's MLS playoffs. What are you doing? And we had an amazing conversation on the way back, which was like, what an amazing life that we want to build with each other. And that sense of reconnecting to friends, community, family, those are the things in life. And prioritizing that. And sports and work gives you so much, but those are things we value. And so always love Thanksgiving. My favorite holiday, Christmas, obviously up there. But just, I think, reconnecting with our community. So looking forward to that.
Favorite food on Thanksgiving? What are you going for?
Favorite food? My dad makes the most bomb Brussels sprouts.
Oh my God. I might need the recipe. I might need the recipe.
Has ever had Brussels sprouts with bacon.
Oh, wow.
Caramelized bacon sometimes. Whoa. You have not lived till you have that.
Might need I don't know if you can part with that recipe, but we might need that after the show.
I tell you what.
Yeah.
Recipe's coming your way.
Okay. Solid. I'm excited. All right. With each of our guests, it's kind of a thing on the pod. We do a little rapid fire to wrap things up, and just kind of first thing that comes to mind. If you want to talk a little bit more, totally fine.
Yeah.
And we're going to kick it off with the favorite city you've lived in.
LA.
Coolest moment in your playing career.
How about most memorable goal?
Oh, okay. So I'll answer both of those.
Okay.
Coolest moment in my career, captaining Miami FC to its first ever championship. That was pretty special. Most memorable goal was we didn't win the game. It was scoring a penalty kick in the U.S. Open Cup final, 2015. We lost to Sporting KC to a past Austin FC player, but at the time future, Matt Beasler. He was captain of that team. And I remember scoring, and I'd missed a PK in preseason. And there was a shift in me and a belief of, I want to be the person who steps into the difficult moments.
Yep.
Because it was sudden death. I had to score to keep things alive. And there was this resounding belief of, you have what it takes.
Yep. Be ready when your name's called.
Yeah.
Go-to hype song.
METHOD, man. METHOD, man. Wu-Tang!
Hey, that's what he's playing. You playing that like pregame now, like getting ready to like go on air?
Total sidebar. One of my best friends, Adrian Cervantes, out in Long Beach, California, it was my first ever ACC game I did in 2020. I was calling it remote here at Longhorn Network, and I was just like, oh my gosh, this is close to home. This is everything. And he called me and he was like, hey, I was thinking about you. And everyone needs a hype song before they go out on stage.
Do anything,
You know, like you did when you played. Why don't you have a hype song? And so I was like, what are you talking about? And he just was like, something like this. METHOD, man. So we were on the phone singing the entire song.
That's amazing.
Front to back.
Love that.
And I went and had it playing in the background as we were doing the prep stuff, the facts and everything, and call the game.
That's amazing.
So that's my hype song.
Go-to hype song. Okay, most recent Netflix or Hulu binge?
Ooh, Netflix, The Watcher.
Ooh.
Great. If you haven't
Episode
seen
3. I'm on episode 3.
Okay, great.
spoilers.
Not going to spoil anything.
Okay.
We watched it in France.
Wow. Okay.
It was incredible. It was like our guilty pleasure of dipping back into America, but obsessed with that show.
Okay, wow. Okay, episode 3.
Yeah.
FIFA or Call of Duty?
FIFA. Come on.
I mean, we had
That's
to throw that
literally
in.
the
It
easiest question.
was a layup. I know.
Well, Austin FC's Danny Pereira. I actually tried. He's a gamer.
Okay.
And I tried to call him to the mat to play FIFA. Like I'm a gamer as well.
Wait,
he's a Call of Duty person.
Oh.
He's an absolute
Him
Call of
and
Duty.
Diego, right?
Diego.
Diego.
They like
Yeah, those
stream
Diego,
and
don't
like
mess with him.
Yeah, they got their Twitches.
I'm not
their
going on
streams.
Twitch. No, he always invites. I'm like,
Yeah.
No.
So, but I love FIFA. I actually, one of the cool experiences, I got to MC the EMLS Cup tournament for South by Southwest here in Austin, and I was kicking myself because you're watching players and you're like X, shoot. So I'm gonna have to enter into one of. I think Austin FC has a esports FIFA tournament. So I
for
think
sure. The one
to
and
get
only
involved.
Color Analyst.
I'm definitely going headsets all in.
Yeah.
Love that.
Noise canceling. If you weren't currently a Color Analyst, what would you be doing?
It's gonna sound cheesy. I would be traveling the world doing philanthropy.
That's awesome.
I am very passionate about it. I love mentoring, and it's something that I definitely plan to continue doing, and it keeps me grounded. Giving back, staying connected to communities around the world, and it's kind of following the next rendition of the game.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Following in your Minister of Culture's footsteps. He's been fun to watch too.
Yeah, he's a legend.
Yeah,
What a
lack
guy.
of energy. I mean, he really just needs to like amp
He's
it up.
he's a real introvert.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Okay. Favorite soccer player growing up? I think you might have alluded to this,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, I would say Thierry Henry, David Beckham. I'm an avid, talk about unapologetic. I am your worst nightmare Manchester United fan. And when it comes to that, it'll get ugly in conversation. So we will not go there right now. But David Beckham, class of 92, 1999, Manchester United. I think, Nico, you know where I'm going with this. Beckham! Corner kick, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Treble completed, Manchester United. I became a fan. And then Thierry Henry, World Cup 98, Euro 2000, and just swag. Like
confidence.
Yeah, there was that. There was
Savage.
a thing.
Savage.
I could keep going.
Oh man, there was a thing they used to say about him. Va va voom.
va va voom.
Yeah, va va voom. Where when he wanted to, just the game was done. He was gone.
I don't know why you hate Arsenal so much.
You're an
when
Arsenal
you,
fan.
When you love
You're
Thierry
I
Henry.
knew it. You're an Arsenal fan.
I'm over here.
There's always one.
Hey,
No, it's a great time
It's
to
a
be
good
an
year
Arsenal
this year.
Yeah.
So
I'm of all the teams, if United can't win, I'm hoping they all tie. I can't root for Arsenal.
That's hilarious.
Okay, and finally, I feel like I over the course of our conversation know the answer to this. But favorite sport to watch or attend a game aside from soccer?
Oh, NBA. I still got the old. Was it the 90s? Dun, 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 the finals music. I hooked from day one. I remember Ahmad Rashad inside the NBA, NBA Inside Stuff. Bring those shows back, please. But I think it's a game that is becoming that secondary global game. You see so much international talent, and that the clubs internationally, Real Madrid has a basketball team. You really start seeing that infusion and that cross-cultural urban culture of basketball and soccer.
Yeah.
And
more players are like juggling the ball on the court now.
Steve Nash.
Yeah.
Manu Ginobili, Argentine connection there with the Spurs. And
even Giannis is out there juggling a little bit, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But I love the NBA. I mean, I like football. But in the love category, soccer, basketball, definitely like football. It's amazing. I find myself getting more into college football.
Oh, yeah.
Than the NFL.
Are you still a college football fan after the whole NCAA decided to start, paying its players?
I am.
Okay.
I am interested to see what they do in regulating it because these are still young adults, 18-year-olds, some 17. Give an 18-year-old 7 figures, and interesting choices can be made. But I think what makes college is you're part of an institution and there's a legacy. You're part of something bigger than yourself. So I'm okay with it, and I think there still needs to be a vetting process and parameters, maybe some financial advisor
too.
Yeah, that would be a great start. But it's become a bit of a Pandora's box. It's been open because it's been a long time coming for this. But I think as a former college athlete, I know the best thing that happened to me was not to be paid. I was not ready to have those responsibilities. I needed those 3.5 years to learn to be an adult, learn to be responsible. So I can see both arguments, but at the end of the day, as long as athletes and student athletes are being responsible and having mentoring and the right guidance, then I think you can find good common ground.
Yeah. Well, Michael, we so appreciate you coming on the pod. I know myself in particular was super stoked to just speak to you, hear more about your story, hear more about your why.
Yeah. Thank you.
Please follow us along on Train ATX on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. Follow us on social, on Instagram at Train ATX for this interview and behind the scenes content. And then Michael, let our listeners know where they can follow along in your journey.
Yeah, you can follow me. Gosh, I feel like I'm on everything but TikTok. I am on TikTok, but don't follow me. I'm still learning TikTok. Right. No, you can follow me on what's left of Twitter at Mike Lahoud, Instagram at Mike Lahoud, just about everything at Mike Lahoud. Yep. Kind of thinking about getting back in the Facebook game, but I'm a Twitterer and Instagrammer and even LinkedIn at Michael Lahoud.
And
Michael
soon to be
Lahoud.
TikToker. Going viral.
Well, it's things
never know.
Like this that made me get into TikTok very quick.
Yeah.
I think TikTok's the next evolution of the pod.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. Appreciate it.
Very welcome.